I heard as you were reading some of the questions that we're going to be dealing with later on this show. I think the biggest issue right now is that the hardest thing for people to wrap their heads around is that we are under a full communist internal revolution. Now, I say that because, you've talked at length about Saul Alinsky, and you've talked at length about the whole plan to basically incorporate all of the heirs, William Ayers' teachings and his basically, let's just call it what it is, his rules for revolution. So now with the situation in New York, I think this is really an important event that's happening, because I think what we're going to see is you're going to see more of these events across the country, because you and I have talked, Alex, over the years at length about turning the police against the people against the police, and yet we have this lone, and he was a Muslim shooter who's tracking the cops, evidently knowing about the exercise going on concurrent with the day's events in New York, and executing these two police officers and then blowing his brains out. That sounds to me like the MK Ultra signature, but we won't go there. The bottom line is the agents provocateurs, whether they're Barack Hussein Obama, whether it's Al Sharpton, whether it's Jesse Jackson, whether it's all the different people that are basically vilifying the cops. Now, years ago when I went on talk radio and you started listening to me, 23 years ago, I said the formula I saw in play for the last days of the Republic would be IVND. Identify, vilify, nullify, destroy. So the idea is to basically turn all cops into federal agents. But prior to that time, in order to get massive civil unrest, there's no greater way than to have high visibility assassinations on both sides and stay in the dark background, if you will, orchestrating all the players. And that's why the globalists don't care in a war who wins, because they control both sides. So what we're seeing now, in my opinion, is the full takedown of the United States, both from within and without. Look at the military. This is critical to talk to. We, you, I, others have covered all of the firings of our military, our military leaders, Navy admirals, anybody with combat experience. And then the stories in the last week, Alex, there were stories coming out. Could our nuclear defense forces even retaliate? Well, my answer to that is probably not. And the reason I say this is before I started into talk radio, I spent most of my time in warning people about nuclear war. Well, obviously, Russia had its seeming defeat, and I said all along, the only thing that happened to that whole situation was the Berlin Wall came down, and all the spies that had to stay on both sides of the wall and sneak into each other's countries now had free access. So what are we seeing right now? We're seeing the total internal revolution, which is part, by the way, of the Marxist plan. We were warned about this by all the Russian defectors. You've had them on in the past. You've quoted from them. I've quoted from them. And now the scene is playing out just like they said it was. And I hear people that saying, well, if we just get enough people to learn, if we just give them enough information, then we can turn the country around. I want to make this clear. It's too late for that. Now, that's my opinion. But what you and I are doing is preparing the people that have ears to hear and eyes to see and really do understand, is we're trying to give them the best information so that they can make the pertinent decisions for their lives, their family lives, and their community lives.
Well, when you see the President of the United States and MSNBC and CNN openly trying to fan race war, openly trying to push, kill the cops, that's so transparent that they're trying to create a major crisis so the feds can then come in as the saviors, as a smokescreen while Obama opens the borders, signs us on to derivatives like Congress just did. Signs us on to the Pacific Partnership, waiving our sovereignty. It's all happening. More is happening right now than happened the last 20 years, Steve, and I only see it accelerating towards a quickening.
Absolutely. Alex, it's no longer linear. There was a time when when events, one would follow the other. Now it's like all of the rods going into a nuclear reactor, creating a chain reaction, and it doesn't matter if you're looking to the east, the west, the north, or the south. It's all happening at once. And here's what's going to happen just in the policing. I believe you're going to see selective areas of the country, the troublemakers, the provocateurs, agent provocateurs are going to ratchet up. And I think the thing that's going to happen is if you look at even Chile and some of the South American countries, Argentina and other, when policing breaks down and Marxists start to take the hold, what do you end up with? You end up with death squads. And the problem is the death squads have been mostly on the other side to date. We all saw, and I'll
That's right. That's right. They'll use the destabilization exactly to set up the death squads, and then they'll be used against us. They'll flip them when the Marxists take full control of the government.
Absolutely. We saw the saddest day when Andrew Breitbart was murdered, followed by Tom Clancy was murdered, followed by Chris Kyle, followed by the Navy SEALs.
Well, I don't want to get into it. They sent somebody here, and he got stopped, and then he went back to California and killed a cop. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, they're really pulling the stops out right now.
Absolutely. And I think this is what, again, most people have to understand, is we're at the point where now the overwhelming of the system is simply a Saul Alinsky ploy. Anybody that doesn't know the background on Saul Alinsky, A-L-I-N-S-K-Y.
Break it down. He dedicated his book to Lucifer.
Yes, sir.
Rules for Radicals. Guys, I've got one around the office, but just show a screenshot of the opening page dedicated to Lucifer, the original revolutionary. Stay there, Steve Quayle of stevequayle.com. I want to lay out, because I know you're an expert on this, how they plan this. And when you see it, foreign megabanks using a Marxist classic takeover program, just like they finance radical Islam and the Arab Spring to take over, they mean business, folks. And just like they tried to overthrow Egypt to bring in mass slaughter, they want it here. That's why I keep harping and harping and harping and harping that, yeah, sure, the system's got problems. Local system has problems, but it's not the enemy. The globalists causing a civil war are. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. Steve Quayle's our guest. Stay with us. Your calls are all coming up with your predictions or what you think the most important issues of 2015 are, or your questions for Steve Quayle, who will continue his analysis right through to the next hour. But I want to do some calls before we get into more of it with him in the next hour. We're about to go right back to Steve Quayle. But when you watch, it doesn't mean there isn't massive police abuse. There doesn't mean there aren't a lot of bad departments or asset forfeiture seizure. It doesn't mean that the federalization hasn't caused a lot of issues. There are people that either mindlessly support whatever the police do, and then that gives rise to arrogance and corruption, or they just say, kill all the police. It's called due process. It's called measuring what individuals do, not what somebody in uniform does in New York versus somebody in Texas. But when I look at these police, anti-police protests, it's the Democratic Party, it's the Socialist Party, it's the Communist Party, it's the Rockefeller Foundation. You can see the group signs. I'll say who's sponsoring it. George Soros, the same guy that just overthrew Ukraine. And it doesn't mean Russia's good either, but they're starting it. It's internationalists who want to bring in this crisis, this destabilization, this Cloward and Piven. And it's a communist tactic. Doesn't mean they're going to bring communism in. It's declassified that British intelligence funded Lenin to take over in 1917, 1918 as part of the great game to bring down Russia. These globalists use communists to take over. Let's go back to Steve Quayle. Steve Quayle, break this down. Talk about Saul Alinsky, who we now know Hillary Clinton got caught writing basically worship letters to when she was in college, and him advising her. I mean, this is truly disgusting. This is a guy who said he wanted to basically put farmers in forced labor camps.
Absolutely. And you know, there is rules for radicals and then his 8 levels of control. Let's talk about control, Alex, because behind every event that you and I talk about and have ever talked about on talk radio or interviews, there is a control mechanism, the unseen hand. But number one, Healthcare. These are Saul Alinsky's biggest points. And I tell people, if you understand the root of evil, then every single piece of legislation makes sense. And by the way, look at the chicken poop, and that's what they are, Republicans. They could have stopped this entity, the man in the slaughterhouse, at any point, and they didn't. So people say, well, I just believe we had a great victory. The great victory? You kidding? Tell me anything that's changed. Well, let's go back to Saul Alinsky. Healthcare. Number one, control healthcare and you control the people. What was the most important thing of this destroyer's principle is Obamacare. Poverty. Increase the poverty level as high as possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if you're providing everything for them to live. Increase the poverty level. 100 million people unemployed, 49 million people on food stamps. Debt. Increase the debt to an unsustainable level. That way you're able to increase taxes, and this will produce more poverty. Ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, where has the middle class gone? To a large degree, they're destroyed. Gun control. Remove the ability to defend themselves from the government. That way you are able to create a police state. Welfare. Take control of every aspect of their lives, food, housing, and income. And Alex, we got to get to the food issue right now because that's going on as we speak. Education. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what children learn in school. Core teaching, the core curriculum. I remember, Tom Terrific, the old day cartoons. Krabby Appleton was rotten to the core. Well, that's exactly who we've got running the country. A whole group of Krabby Appletons. Only guys my age would understand that probably. Religion. Remove the belief of God from government and schools. And now here it comes. Class warfare. Divide the people into the wealthy and the poor. This will cause more discontent and it will be easier to take. Tax the wealthy with the support of the poor. So the point is that are we not seeing that, Alex? We're seeing it right before our very eyes. You and I could take any one of those subjects and talk for 24 hours straight, and that's not a boast, it just happens to be true, and deal with it. So what we then go to is the rules for radicals, and that's the bottom line. Is it always starts with, are you ready for this? Community organizers. Number one, power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Power is derived from two main sources, money and people. Have-nots must build power from flesh and blood. Number two, never go outside the expertise of your people. It results in confusion, fear, and retreat. Feeling secure adds to the backbone.
Stay there. You're reading the guru of the Democratic Party running this country for foreign globalists, Saul Alinsky, openly how to wreck things, how to make people poor, and then how to take over society. This is the person that Hillary wrote to saying, you are basically my North Star. You are my governing, director. Just pure evil. They know what they're doing. They're cold-blooded. And if we're unaware of their tactics, we're helpless. If we're aware of their tactics and can educate others, we can certainly protect ourselves and our families. Even if you were a sociopath, knowing how the world really works can make you very wealthy. The globalists want you dumbed down so that you can be fed on. As Christ said, the people perish for lack of knowledge. And the reason I'm so dedicated and quite frankly fearless in the face of this is I realize there's no future if we don't stand up against this. Going along with it, especially in the final phases of this, ensures your destruction. But also, it means you've chosen to join with the New World Order. We're reading through Saul Alinsky, Hillary Clinton's mentor, and every Democrat I know who's an operative, I mean, they worship this guy. And I remember reading his book like 20 years ago, Rules for Radicals. It's a short little book. And it's so evil how they want to make people poor so they can control them and how they're going to be the ruling class engineers. It's just more eugenics. It's so evil to read what Margaret Sanger wrote about black people and using liberalism to control them and just to know the plan. That's why I dream of defeating these people. And just like they want to dumb people down and motivate them to fight for tyranny, believing it's liberation, I mean, the Weathermen and stuff, they were the ones that said, go out and just shoot a pig. And then that just turns the police into a bunch of paranoid paramilitary people who'll then just feed on the general public. It's the way you destabilize a country so they can then take over. That's a standard communist program. That's why it's so essential that everyone out there spread the word about Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com and these local AM and FM affiliates you're hearing us on, and that you tell friends and family about it, and that you thank the station or become a sponsor or support the sponsors and let them know. Because we are growing, but meeting more resistance than ever. So we're walking forward in the storm, but it gets harder and harder. And we either grow or we implode. That's how media works. I need you to support us financially. I need you to support us by spreading the word and your prayers. And to support other media that stands up for the family and the Second Amendment and sovereignty, but that will expose the fact that, yes, the interest rates are rigged worldwide. We told you that 15 years ago. It's declassified last year. We told you the Federal Reserve was private. It's all admitted now. We know what we're talking about. I've read Carol Quigley's book. I've read Brzezinski's books. I've read the nonfiction books of Aldous Huxley. The Doors of Perception and Brave New World Revisited. I mean, I've read Bertrand Russell's books. I know their diabolical plan. We've quoted them here. The Club of Rome documents that Steve was reading a few months ago when he was on, where they said we're going to wage war against humanity. This is so cold-blooded. But to get us to go along with it, they have to first turn us all against each other. And it's so sickening. So today, it's more important than ever. Go to PrisonPlanet.tv. It takes a minute to sign up. Create a username and passcode that's original just to the site. And then share your username with friends and family. 20 people can simultaneously log on. And if your membership gets used and 20 people log on, you ought to thank God if you try to tune into the nightly news one night at 7 and you can't get on. That means 20 people are using your membership. PrisonPlanet.tv. Go there. Give it as a Christmas gift. Give it to friends and family. Give it as an e-card. 20 people can log on. That's 12 cents a person per month. Go to InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com. We've got a bunch of specials still running on the entire family of InfoWarsLife.com products that really have been life-changing for myself and others, whether it's X2 Nation Iodine or whether it's Oxy powder to flush out your intestines or whether it's high-quality colloidal silver at a low price, Silver Bullet. We've got it all at InfoWarsLife.com, and that's how I finance this operation. And I thank you all for your prayers. And be sure to go over as well and check out all the amazing books and information at stevequayle.com. We'll talk about that more in the next hour. Steve, I'm ranting. I want to go to calls because they're holding with their predictions. I want their ideas to bounce off you. Then you'll be able to get back into a deep breakdown of what's happening because you're on fire today. But start back over with the rules for radicals from the guy that dedicates his life to Lucifer, that just this year, all these Hillary letters got released out of the Clinton Library with her in correspondence with him when Life magazine, when she was in college, was saying, here's a woman who may be first lady, to show how they groom these amoral demons, break down their plan to bring down America.
Well, first of all, you know, the fifth principle you should appreciate more, and I should appreciate more, because of the assault that's been levied against you and the continual interruption of my broadcasts on talk radio, Alex, on shortwave, where I was for 2 decades. No one was ever taken off the air or taken off satellites more than you or I. Now, here's something that people have got to understand. For all the shills that attack Alex, for all the shills that attack me, ridicule is the man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It's irrational. It's infuriating. It also works as a key pressure point to force the enemy into concessions. Would you say, Alex Jones, that you have experienced that at an accelerated pace in the last 3 months?
Yes.
Okay. Now, listen to this. A good tact is one your people enjoy. They'll keep doing it without urging and come back to do more. They're doing their thing, and we'll even suggest better ones. A tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Don't become old news. So all we're seeing is the radicals, the rules for radicals. And let me make this clear. From the beginning of, and I am on fire, from the beginning of the entire clear breakdown, takedown of this nation. And listen, people that want to focus on the Federal Reserve and all the other stuff that you and I covered 15, 20 years ago, get over that stuff. I'm not saying it isn't valid, but I'm saying they're doing it all before your eyes. And so when it comes to supporting InfoWars, I'm telling everybody I know, I'm saying turn it off on the mainstream news. Turn it off. It has nothing. And I'm saying this, you will watch the mainstream media become mainstream accomplices to murder, because no matter who it is, you saw Time says, well, the real problem in America is all those armed patriots, those constitutionalists. They will never say it is jihad, and you and I have been laying who's behind the jihad. And one of the things that's really important, the people who control ISIS will also be the ones controlling martial law. And the purpose of the horror and all the beheadings and all the gory stuff that's gone on, all the videos on YouTube, is to frighten your opponent and get him to yield, and then they just come in and kill everybody. Well, I got news. They don't know about Texas, and I just posted a photo of my day. Montana's the same way, and it showed three, like, Western guys checking their pieces to go out, and I mean, it's at a ghost town or called Nevada City, and they do reenactment, but I said, it's time to check your pieces. There are people that are willing to stand up, but we have to do is expose these murderers, and we have to say it is murder. And I'm telling you this, watch this happen, ladies and gentlemen. Either de Blasio will quit or he's going to be dealt with. I'm not saying that I mean, you know, the thing is the guy should resign. When you lose your backing by the local police, and for the record, Alex, you probably saw a story, not one cop wants to be head of his security detail. Not one cop. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
And so now what we're seeing is we're seeing divide and conquer. And this is my chief warning. The greatest issue that I have faced in the last 5 years is try and get the vets to understand, the veterans, that they are the enemy. To try and get the average person to understand, look, I've been talking about the red list, the blue list, and the green list for years, okay? And the point is now, I think it's, who is it, Judicial Watch has filed suit to get Obama's enemies list. Did you see that?
Absolutely, and I've been told, it's been in major newspapers, that I'm on that list. But we certainly know who's on the list. It's who Media Matters attacks, run by the White House, and they've been caught actually trying to infiltrate and bring down alternative media.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's more important than ever. And Alex, I've said this. This is no flattery. I love InfoWars and I love Prison Planet. This is a prison planet. If they have their ways, you know, I remember talking about population reduction. I one time did a whole show, and I think I quoted, you know, close to 100 of the most famous people, Jacques Cousteau, all of the eugenicists, Margaret Sanger, you know, from the beginning. And ladies and gentlemen, how any thinking person, especially the black Americans, can even embrace the president and his policies. You've just got to understand what Margaret Sanger said about black people. And listen, there are some amazing, and what I find interesting, Alex, the guys who are the most outspoken against the evil, and God bless every one of them, are basically people who are black athletes and black pastors standing their ground for Jesus. I put them up every time they come up. You know, it doesn't matter if it's like Ben Carson, one of the most famous surgeons in the world, you know, an amazing man. It doesn't matter. You know, you talk about all these different people, but the problem is, and I think I heard just the tail end of the previous gentleman or a recording you had on talking about it's got to start at a community level. It has to start at an individual level, and everybody's saying, look, if I don't speak up, I don't want my granddaughter sold into an ISIS sex slave trade. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be disgusted, go on my website, Steve Quayle, QUAYLE.com, and look at the stories. Alex, this is not only reprehensible, it's egregious, but it goes right back to Zelensky. And if his whole premise, and you brought it up, is that they worship Lucifer as God, Hillary worships Lucifer as God, and yet it's kind of, if you will, it's a mental shock, a pair of cymbals smashing opposite sides of your head. You've got people that have denied God, the atheists, yet behind the scenes, they're secret Luciferian worshipers. And the end time is coming right into perspective. It's no longer in the indefinite future. It's now in the present. And the basis of all revolution is the overthrow of existing morality, existing national boundaries, and the globalists. Look, if you and I tell people 100 times they want 90% of the world's population dead, and real quick, back to Ebola, as of today, according to the World Health Organization, I believe they're cheating the numbers. I believe it's double what they admit have died. They're admitting 7,560 people dead. I believe it's closer to 50,000. Look at the race that it was generated against. When I spoke about bioweapons, Project Coast, I think maybe in those days you must have thought, boy, Quayle's on another planet. But the point is that I was interfacing in those days with people, and I couldn't know this stuff unless the people who were involved in it told me. And men of conscience right now are starting. It doesn't matter if they're former KGB, and believe it or not, there are Russian agents who care as much for what's going to happen to their people as British, as U.S., you name it. People know that they're all being played for suckers. That's why I even say to the gang members when I'm on radio, and I'll say it to those listening today, you're being played for suckers. When they're done with you, they kill you. That is their, if you will, their rules of revolution, and that's your fate. Don't go with what they tell you. It's a lie. And that's, Alex, what I believe the benefit of supporting InfoWars. I mean, I don't know how many total videos have you produced?
Well, we're trying our best here, Steve. All I see is it's converging, and it's got to be a wake-up call. When the president says he'll implement a UN treaty to restrict gun ownership, even if Congress doesn't pass it, he'll put our troops under NATO UN control without congressional approval. He'll open the borders up without congressional approval. And Congress doesn't even repeal Obamacare. It doesn't even try to stop Obama because of the Republican leadership. It shows the fix is in. But what's going to happen as the grassroots wakes up and starts replacing them with more Tea Party people? I mean, what is the establishment planning to do? I believe it will be a false flag to demonize the liberty movement. What about the FBI's latest report? It's in USA Today. It's linked up on Infowars.com. And it says FBI links Ferguson anarchists to ISIS. Sovereign citizens also linked to Islamic terror. So that's basically a Tea Party type group. They think we're so dumb that, as you know, in the new Army training manuals, they say they're preparing for the Tea Party to join ISIS. I mean, Tea Party is, to use a media term, the most Islamophobic group out there. How do they think they're going to make this pig fly?
Well, first of all, they're going to set up some throwaways. They're going to basically set an identity up, or multiple identities. The shooters or the assassins will basically do the killing, and they'll take the picture of their fake Tea Party member. And I agree with you, Alex. There is no continuity of thought between ISIS and the Tea Party. But remember, what happens is this. They'll set up their stooges, whether they have MK Ultra, dual identity, assassins, and then suicide themselves. The point is they'll have everything stoked. They'll have fake backgrounds. They'll put Twitter and Facebook postings, and don't think they can't do that and backdate them. And then they'll have their apartment littered with, whoever, Ron Paul stickers and everything else, you, me, whoever, all the books. And yet, at the same time, the people that are being set up had better scream at the top of their lungs. They better use the courts that still exist to file RICO suits, Racketeering and Influence Corrupt Officials Act. Because, again, the point, I say the point is, Alex, we can wake up all the people, but there comes a point when it's too late, okay? And so I'm telling this, I say this to men and women of wealth. You need to get behind behind, and I couldn't be more serious in this. I have, let's see, I think I got 4 grandkids, Alex, okay? I got 5 kids and 4 grandkids. And when I read that story on my website today, I physically wanted to puke. And if this doesn't infuriate, I'll use that word because I don't want to use a P word because too many people get upset, that infuriates me to such an extent to think that never would any of us 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, think that our grandchildren, our children, if you've got young children, could be sold into sex trafficking. And if people think that's crazy, Syria was one country before all the revolution. These devils, D-E-V-I-L-S, Luciferian globalist slime, take their orders from the Prince of Darkness. And I'll be blunt. The Bible says he comes to kill, to rob, and destroy. So people had better recognize you may be old, you may be having a will or living trust, any one of these documents, but why don't you stand up and help the people?
Oh, I know. It's incredible. I've met billionaires that know about all this, and they do nothing to stop it. And I mean, I know somebody that is friends with one of the Walmart heirs worth $40 billion. She lives out in West Texas. She lives in a farmhouse and just drives her car around, and she knows about all this stuff, but just doesn't care. Just, you know, it's... Well, Steve's been on the last 50 minutes. He's with us the whole next hour, but now it's open phones. Until the bottom of the next hour, I'm going to be interspersing breaking news as well. But coming up, we're going to get into this news of the Dow Jones at 18,000, GDP best in a decade. We'll talk about the real economic status from Steve Quayle's research with him coming up. And look, I want a good economy, but we're on top of a giant bubble. And the globalists just passed a bunch of laws so they can sign us on to new derivatives that's not our debt. And so this is a serious situation. I'll ask Steve how he thinks that'll unfold. Right now, though, JJ in Kansas, what do you think the big issues are going to be in 2015?
I will get to that. First, I have a question, pretty important, and I think a lot of people out here are wondering the same thing. It's about when the crap hits the fan, everyone's been preparing. Everyone's been stocking up food, water, arms, whatever to keep their families safe. What is our end game? Like, what do we go hide in, like in our fort, our bungalow, whatever? What do we do? Like,
well, that varies on where you are. And look, people 50, 60 years ago were always prepared, even if a crisis wasn't coming down the road. If you lived in the Midwest, you had a storm shelter because people got killed by tornadoes. It wasn't that you were living in fear, you were just prepared. So getting back to the land, having a backup plan, that's key. Getting your heart right is even more important in my view. We'll get Steve Quayle's take on that. But in the final equation, they could nuke a city. The globalists could, or any of these crime networks, try to bring in martial law. They could have a huge collapse in Mexico and 20 million come across the border in 1 week. That could destabilize things. A world dollar devaluation. There's just so... It's like a cartoon where the character has 100 plates in his hand and he's trying to balance them. You know they're coming down. Every economist says that. The question is, how bad will it be? We're trying to get people prepared. The elites are all getting prepared. The rich people are all getting prepared. I was just talking about that. All these rich people I either know or know folks that know have been building underground bunkers and have armed guards and are moving out to the countryside. I mean, that's been in the news. Or moving, you know, to islands in the middle of nowhere. What do they know? Steve Quayle, to try to answer his question, what do people do to get ready?
First thing is, you said it, get right with God. Second thing is pray, and I mean this. Pray for the right people to come across your path. No man is an island unto himself. Look, I was one of the founders of the PrEP movement almost 30 years ago, and I can tell you this. So many people have come into my life and gone saying they believe in preparation only to basically, either betray or stab you in the back, whatever, but pray. And here's my answer to this. God will give you better friends than you'd ever choose for yourself if you'll seek him first, not after the fact. Same thing for spouses. Second thing that people have got to do is they have got to get the mindset that it doesn't get better. They are preparing, in essence, for the total siege. Look at Argentina. Look at the history of the world. Look at the siege of Stalingrad. Start getting realistic. And I'll tell you this, Alex, if someone, and I'm not picking on the caller, this is the best advice I can give. If you have to ask that question, you haven't done your homework. First thing, though, get right with God. Second thing, pray and make it a matter of your chief input to find like-minded individuals.
Well, and it's good to seek, because I can talk the talk. I'm so busy fighting tyranny, I've not gotten as ready as I like to, and I offensively try to fight the globalists to affect the future battle space to change things. But the reason we all prepare is when you realize how evil the globalists are, and they're in control, and all their documents say they want to make you totally bankrupt and bring in a global depression, to bring in a global government. We don't know the hour or the time of that. But every indicator is they're accelerating their timetable to meet that. They're behind. Steve?
Yeah, I think this is critical. The most important thing I would tell everybody, that visits my site, in real time I put up the alert section. It's over on the right-hand side of my page. Alex, the reports coming in from people in the food processing business.
I want to hear this. Stay there. Thank you, caller. Stay with us. Third hour coming up. Coming up at the start of the next segment, I'm going to break something down that I think is really central and really important. And I'm going to give Steve Quayle's take on it. Right now, let's continue with your calls. Let's talk to Steve in Ohio. Thanks for holding, Steve. You're on the air worldwide.
Hey, hello, Alex. How's it going?
Good, brother.
Hey, as far as my take on what the globalist agenda is, I would go as far as to say that, they are going to attack the Tea Party members, but also true patriots like me, yourself, veterans, and oath keepers alike. And if that doesn't work, then I believe that they'll go to collapsing the economy on purpose due to the fact that you can't feed your family. You can do whatever you can to feed your family. That includes going with their agenda, doing whatever they want you to do.
I think that's a great point. Steve Quayle, your take on that. Thank you, Steve.
Well, I think he's really right, and I think the thing that most people don't realize, Alex, you and I did a whole show, I think the last show we did on the Deagle Report, the way you take out 200 million people, first of all, is you're going to take them out by starving them into the FEMA camps and then killing them once they get there.
And that's what Mao Zedong did, and David Rockefeller helped organize it, wrote an article for New York Times about it. He's very proud of the 80 million plus they killed. That's what Lenin and Stalin did. This is the globalist program.
Now, it started, Alex. That's the thing. Let me get to the food thing. If you just said, Steve, what's the most important thing you know at this minute, which you're basically asking me, is I have people in the food production business, the biggest food producers, emailing me, calling me, saying, we just got the biggest orders in the history of our company in MREs, bigger than anything that was put forth by the government, and they're all going, their words, not mine, into underground caves and bunkers. Then people are telling me that in some of the areas of Pennsylvania and other areas of really key food production, bottom line is they're saying, Steve, we're seeing these purchase orders and they don't make sense. They're not going to any of our standard customers. Then we fast forward, Alex, and I'm getting reports from all over the country, but first and foremost from some of the areas that are closest to these bases, okay? 236, some people say 250 underground bases in the United States, that the food is being diverted from the warehouses that basically furnish or provide all the goods to their supermarkets. The biggest supermarket in Fargo, North Dakota is having empty shelves because not that people are coming in and buying everything, they're just not getting anything. So I say this, the great starving to compliance is underway. It's one thing to see rioting. It's another thing to see, people upset philosophically, and rightly so. But the point is, when they don't eat, that's when they riot. And the goal of the Illuminists, the goal of the Illuminati, the goal of one of the highest-ranking Texas Illuminists I ever met, tried to convert him. I failed, meaning share Jesus with him. He said, I'm too far gone for that. I pledged my allegiance to the Prince of Darkness 20 years ago. But I will tell you how it's going to play out. That's a true story. I can tell you his name. The point being is it's starting to happen now. And this is you just ran through the historic litany of it. What happens when food disappears? Well, the next thing that when food disappears, nutrition gets hit. And that's why people should be buying every nutritional support product they can get. That's not a pitch. It's advice. Your calories are going to be cut. The nutritional goodness of what you used to be able to eat is going to be cut.
Well, I was about to say, I go to restaurants I've gone to for years, And now it's not real meat anymore, well, I mean, they admit meat prices are at all-time highs. Other things are all-time highs. At the same time, energy prices are going down to bankrupt Russia. I want to talk about that with you straight ahead, Steve Quayle. And folks, I'm going to break something down really important when we come back. So please listen up and stay there. And we're also going to go to John in New York. We're going to go to Jerry in Georgia, Margaret in Oklahoma, Lori in California, Linda in New York, and others. Toll-free number, 800-259-9231. Ladies and gentlemen, on this Tuesday, December 23rd, 2014, worldwide broadcast, we'll be back live tomorrow, Lord willing. And back Friday live. We have a special rebroadcast with Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins, and then William Binney, that incredible interview a month ago, where the former head of a major NSA department, number 4 in the overall organization, spilt his guts about the tyranny of the all-seeing panopticon system they're attempting to construct to control civilization and to set us upon the path to tyranny. There are the forces of good and evil in this world. I know everybody knows that, but there's not just evil operating. But if good people will not recognize that there are bad people trying to get full control, trying to set up a planetary government so there are no nations or peoples to block it, and that it is a worldwide unified program of bad will towards humanity for total control, we don't have a hope or a prayer. Conversely, if we can be played off against each other, we don't have a prayer. So when I get up here and sometimes give you worst-case scenarios, it's because I'm tuning into, from research, the wish list of the technocrats and what they'd like to do. I have read hundreds of books written by the technocrats. We've quoted them here. We've sourced them. We've sourced 3 or 4 or 5 or more today. We've shown the quotes on screen for TV viewers. We've plugged them for radio listeners, so you can go check it out for yourself. There are people, if you study the Jacobin French Revolution, that was the opposite of ours, an Illuminati revolution, I mean, that's in the history books, that wanted to change the work week to 9 days out of 10, wanted to change the calendar, abolish the family, and wanted to make basically devil worship the state religion, where they would be kings over a new hell world. These are crazy people, but they hunger for the power and the control. So when we get up here and break down what the globalists are doing and point out how bad it could get, it's because we're hoping to shake people out of their slumber. We're showing you a possible reality, a possible future, and one that's becoming more probable. Certainly, much of it is now unfolding. When we beat something, when you beat something, when we fight it together, then they say, oh, it never happened. But you notice a lot of it does end up happening. It is a mathematical fact that the economy will implode one way or another. It's designed to, and the globalists admit that. But they tell the public, oh, it's just the greatest GDP ever. Dow's up 18,000. Not telling you it's because fiat dollars are following it. Not telling you it's because it's full of derivatives. It's full of fraud. And they get the public to buy into the fraud, believing it'll shore up your pension fund. They're getting ready to start taking the private pension funds to, quote, shore up the stock market and get you to go along with it because, oh, well, that'll secure the fraud. But really it won't, because areas like Greece and Spain are a few years ahead of us. It was designed to impoverish you. Steve, I want to go back to calls and break down a lot. I want to get into all this, but what I'm trying to get at here is the enemy's greatest tool. I forget who said the devil's greatest trick was convincing the world he didn't exist. The globalist's greatest trick is deny this stuff exists. Now they admit it exists, but say it's good. And then get people in a normalcy bias or mass Stockholm syndrome or learned helplessness to just not believe the magnitude of what's happening. And the reason I've been successful and you've been successful is that we're really showing people where this road leads. We've been so insulated in this country from 40-something million just in Europe being killed in World War II, 20-plus million Russians, 20-plus million Germans. We are so... I mean, most people are dead who lived in the Great Depression. in this country that was easy compared to other nations, where upwards of 50 million people were homeless and where 7 million people, major universities believe, died of malnutrition in association with starvation. That was when 90% lived in rural areas, most of them self-sufficient. Now we're 90% urban. Less than half of those, 10%, or about 5, are self-sufficient. And then the great crime in the Homeland Security is being self-sufficient as government stockpiles food and weapons. Steve Quayle, I want to go back to calls, but getting into this.
Because you said something that's really critical. The people have got to understand that all the news right now, they're already being conditioned to accept the fact that, number one, robots are and the whole thing with singularity and robots and everything is designed to replace them, okay? I just have questions coming in on my email. Well, what does it mean about jobs in 2025? You'll be dead by 2025. No one's putting, maybe you've dealt with it, but no one's putting the linkage between all of the artificial intelligence, everything that's breaking on neuroscience, everything that's breaking on the Technology Minority Report. Guess what, people? That's exactly why the Deagle denials are irrelevant. That's why the RAND Corporation is behind basically telling the elite how it's going to play out. So I want to say one thing, Alex. Of everything I've ever done, all the years I've been on talk radio, writing books, I think I'm on my 12th book coming up. I'm going to release it. I'll let it be known what that is in a couple weeks. But the thing that's so important is that the globalists hate humanity because they're Luciferians, and the whole idea of creating artificially intelligent machines or artilects is to get rid of human beings. And in my book, I got to say this: the most important thing I've ever written. If you've ever read anything I've written, my book Xenogenesis is so critical, and it's changing people because, Alex, again, you've given puzzle pieces, I've given puzzle pieces. And the puzzle pieces, when people finally see all the pieces fitting together, that's when they start to take note, and that's when they'll start to take action. And I'm telling everybody, the puzzle pieces are all together now, and that's why when we're talking about 90% extermination of the human race, that's why when we're talking about the Georgia Guidestones, look, the Georgia Guidestones is nothing more than a granite writ of execution.
And by the way, I want to be clear here and then go to some phone calls, but at the bottom of the hour, let's get into the robot takeover. We can show all the new articles admitting they've already made the decision to get rid of humans. We're not just obsolete. We're now dead weight. It's not us. It's Bill Joy. It is Ray Kurzweil. It's the UN. The decision has been made to get rid of us. And even Fortune magazine and the London Telegraph now have headlines like I put in the film Endgame 7 years ago. The elite have decided to kill us because they're going to merge with machines and live forever. Meanwhile,
Absolutely.
Stephen Hawking warns the plan is to get rid of us. So, folks, what we're telling you is not our opinion. The elite that are almost in control of the planet right now, they're in control of most of it, openly say their plan is to put a high-tech grid in to spy on us, have robots replace us at all the factories where robots work on robots, so there's no escape. Then they're going to start releasing mega plagues. Then they're going to turn the robots loose to hunt us down. And this is not Terminator, folks. This is their real plan. Now, this is insane. If I wrote a book about my plan, this is hypothetical, to say attack FBI headquarters, which I would never do, wish no harm upon them, just to people like us, I would expect to be investigated and probably arrested if I wrote a serious book about my plan to do it. The globalists have all written treatises and are talking about their plan, and we're watching it all unfold. That's what we're telling you. So we're trying to shake you out of your trance. We're trying to break the literal spell. Steve Quayle.
Well, and thank you, Alex, because I don't think I can be any more impassioned than your plea. I can tell you point blank that when people finally get this, and you mentioned Bill Joy. For the record, I think you listened to my broadcast. When he first came out with the treatise, it's called Why the World Doesn't Need Us Anymore. And the point is that he was the head of Sun Microsystems, probably the most important blueprint for the future. And I want people to understand this. The research and this is like what you do, but the research I put into Xenogenesis is absolutely groundbreaking. This is not crazy stuff. I was looking at Drudge the other day, I think it was yesterday, and you probably saw it too. Now they're basically putting forth their sex bots, okay, SEXBOTS, and the reason they're pushing that is for the humans. They want to control population. It's a techno form of birth control. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can get my book, Xenogenesis, on my website. It's that important, Alex. It's that is the, if you will, cumulative effect of 24 years of writing, and it's only available on my website. So please, it's that critical. Alex, if people cannot recognize that, everything else fails in comparison, and they're ready to initiate that now, the Super Soldier program. You and I did a whole show on that years ago.
They now admit it all. I'm going to skip this network break. We're going to talk more about this coming up because I want to go to John and Jerry and Margaret that have been holding the longest. John in New York, what do you see coming up in 2015, or any questions for Steve Quayle?
Yeah, hi. I really appreciate your show. It's wonderful, but obviously, as Steve Quayle said, we have to be sober and realize that, info isn't always enough, especially at this point. And another caller pointed that out, the importance of spirituality. And I wanted to, I was trying to call yesterday about the police, but good friend childhood friend of mine, who's a journalist, posted this about the, especially in Cleveland, where the union defended these cops they were trying to fire. The National Federal Union defended these cops they're trying to fire. Then when they keep doing bad things, who gets in trouble is the local precinct. And so I think that's the problem, the systemic problem that something's got to change there.
Yeah, I want to get Steve Quayle's take on that because I've broken down how I see it. We know it's divide and conquer. Obviously, the police are doing a lot of bad stuff. But when you see mainstream media pushing a war on police, what is the dialectic there? What's the master plan in that?
Well, it's to destroy all trust, Alex. It's to destroy all hope. Again, it's to discourage, because most people have never taken two things seriously: personal accountability and personal responsibility, okay? And now, what we've been talking about, every ad you run, and let me make it clear, you're a sponsor for the bulletproof vests, body armor. People should run to that because they're already proposing legislation to make that illegal. I just posted, and this is critical because it goes right along with what your sponsor's doing. The point being is that I posted a raffle on my website today for a urban escape vehicle, a bulletproof vehicle, made in Texas, by the way. And the guy that bought it sold to me because he upgraded. And people don't know this, but I've been in the survival business. But the high dollar people, the clients that are out there, these guys all have armored cars. So for $100, a real quick ploy or a real quick pitch, they can get a 300 tickets, $100,000 vehicle. That's what it costs to replace it. But what I'm saying, Alex, is the people that I know who know it's coming, who are living, even in Texas, living in the most important, or even some of the most far-removed areas from the big cities, are acquiring this because they're already getting prepared.
No, I know. I've been contacted a lot by some of the big factories that produce the armored cars down in San Antonio that look like Suburbans, look like normal trucks. Is that the elites are just have been buying them like hotcakes? Again, what is all that about, Steve Quayle?
Well, first of all, the idea, and by the way, I have a long-standing relationship with Texas Armoring, and been buying their stuff and brokering their vehicles for a long time. But you'll see them on TV all the time. But the reason that it's expanding and increasing is high-value targets are going to be caught in the city. We watched Ferguson explode before our eyes, and for the record, a normal automobile provides no protection against, a firearm. Same thing. Look at this. It's being proposed that body armor be illegal to the citizens, just like firearms. Well, I don't know what everyone else's red line is, but you got to know, if they want the guns that bad, ask yourself a simple question. Fast and Furious, yes. Second Amendment rights, no. Ask yourself this: who's funding the gangs? Ask yourself who's providing them with heavy weaponry. That's a mouthful. The point being, Alex, is not only is Civil War planned, not only is Civil War funded, not only are there foreign troops in here to mop up, quote, the Patriots, whatever they want to call, but this is all being done on an accelerated basis. I see the current state of police assassinations as the key point. And by the way, you have a lot of law enforcement officers who listen to you. I do too. I remember telling them 4 years ago, be careful. There are traitors in our government that are making known where you guys work, where your wives work, their schedules, where your children go to school. And did you see the story just last week? The police are now being informed of everything you and I were talking about 4 years ago. And, Alex, they didn't take us seriously then. They do now, my guess is.
Well, obviously, if there's a globalist criminal takeover, they're going to go after everybody who's good. And they're keeping tabs on everybody. They know who's moral. They know who won't play ball. But then, first they'll take them out. Then they'll take out the group that helped take them out. And then they'll consolidate power. This always is done. And, Steve, give me your take on this. Why, historically, whether it's the Soviets or the Chi-Coms or the Nazis or any other tyranny throughout history, they always take out the good guys first in the government. Then they take out those that took them out.
Well, it's easy because, first of all, they take out the good guys because even Jesus said we're the salt of the world and the light of the world, the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So they want Christians. Now, look, Alex, and this is critical. Christians are being murdered by the millions worldwide and not one word from the White House. And I'm saying this, listen, the plan of the globalists is to pit everybody against everybody. I get people saying, well, World War III and Albert Pike's vision isn't true. Well, if it isn't true, somebody thought it was true because they're following that plan. Just, ladies and gentlemen, do an internet search for Albert Pike, World War III. It'll give you the whole background. The point is...
Well, I'll tell you what, let's get into that in the next segment, because I mean, that's something important to talk about as well.
Right, but let's just say this. The reason they take out the facilitators is because they know that those people betrayed the very people that put that, that basically funded them, and they don't want the betrayal carrying through to the new government. Make sense? They know anybody who's a traitor will also at some point probably turn against them. That's the reason they kill the second group.
With a vengeance.
With a vengeance.
The second round of killing is always bigger than the first.
Absolutely. Once the blood starts, it doesn't stop. And unfortunately, the blood is going to flow. And just look at this. Look at all of this was never a problem. At least, the terrorists supposedly coming into the country. Now you have the vilification of good, and you have the verification of that which is bad. The mainstream media, I want to say this, anybody that listens to them is under the mind control. It's just like, by the way, scopolamine, one of the drugs that's called devil's breath, along with zombie dust, which is the burundanga, a chemical. These things are real. And I'm beginning to think, Alex, that there's more of the chemicals, the mind-altering psychotropic drug residue now being put into the chemtrails, and you've probably been following that too. I'm not trying to divest from the subject, but I'm just saying this. I have noticed that the planes are flying lower and lower. I'm in the air a lot. I take a lot of aerial photographs. I fly a lot. The point being is that I'm noticing where you used to see them at 32,000 feet, now they're getting down as low as 1,500 feet.
Well, we know there's geoengineering going on big time. Let's take a phone call. Jerry in Georgia, thanks for holding. You're a trooper. You're on the air with Steve Quayle.
Hi, Alex. Both you and your guest have talked about how they brag about what they're going to do to us before they do it with predictive programming.
Yes.
And I think that we'll see what's going to happen. Just like last Thursday night on Elementary on CBS, a man walked up to a police car and shot a cop dead. And then 2 days later, it happens in New York City.
Well, yeah, that's what I call basic mind control. They hype that enough and just show it on TV. Mentally ill people will go out highly suggestible and do it on their own.
Absolutely, and they're going to show us what they have coming down the pike, and it'll be right in front of us if we watch. If we start seeing enough main primetime shows showing.
Well, you notice almost every cop show, adventure show, whatever, has patriots nuking cities or blowing things up. They're getting everybody ready so when it happens, because it wasn't happening before, people go, oh, yeah, that seems right, because we've already been pre-demonized. That shows their pre-preparation targeting. They laze you with propaganda first before they drop real bombs on you, and that's what I see happening. I want the caller to be able to finish up, but Steve Quayle, your take on predictive programming.
Predictive programming, okay? It's basically rubbing your nose, my nose, our noses the very fact that they are mocking us, that we're not even bright enough. Remember, the elite believe they're elite in intellectual prowess, too.
It's lesser magic in their own words. They need to manifest it as a model first in front of us. It's a metaphysical rule as well, that it's like counting coup, like a Native American would mock kill you 2 or 3 times in combat before they actually killed you. They believe it adds to the mojo to symbolically do it before they actually do it.
Absolutely, and again, it gets back, it's truly called ritual magic, okay? And the reason it's ritual magic is, and I actually believe this, you know, and Alex, the reason I go to the Bible when, for instance, in the book of Hosea, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. God doesn't want his people destroyed. The whole basis of prophecy is telling you what's going to be, you know, coming in the future.
It's a warning. You're given the blueprint.
You're given the blueprint. And so the thing is that, ladies and gentlemen, when they lay it out, when people say, what can they do? Notice this.
Stay there. We got a break. You'll come right back to you, Stephen. Let Jerry finish. Then we'll go to everybody else that's patiently holding. So stay with us. There's no mountain high enough to stop me from trying to empower humanity and carry out all I can do to stand up for what's decent and honest. And that's not anything heroic, because signing on with the New World Order is like tying a millstone around your neck, to quote Christ, and throw yourself in the deepest ocean. A millstone's one of those giant stones they use to grind wheat with. Be better for you to do that than to hurt the innocents, to hurt the little children. The vaccines, all of it. This whole system is so evil. And through compartmentalization, most people who are not bad at heart are helping carry it out. So no matter how horrible the truth is, I'm going to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And not because I'm a hero, and not because I'm perfect, but because I know how evil the globalists are. In other countries where they've got full control, it was even the New York Times 2 years ago, Paul Watson wrote about it. They send in UN troops into villages where people have been for 1,000 years because it's a UN carbon sink, and they're taking this land so they can mine over here. And they line them up and shoot them and burn down their houses. And then they have articles about, well, it's for the earth. See how it's just, oh, yeah, we're just mowing villagers down. It's no big deal. But, oh, my gosh, the police are so racist. You know, let's have a war with them. And it's not that there isn't some bad stuff happening. It's that the system is choosing to do that. Obviously, it's a divide and conquer tactic. Obviously, it's a takeover program. And you could just see a classic communist destabilization program that I've historically researched all over the world 30, 40 times, and that I've seen on air in 20 years dozens of times. I mean, this is a shake and bake operation. Just like I know how to make box pancakes, folks, I can sit back and watch the globalists making this. I mean, this is a ABCD, type deal. And I'm just sitting here with horror going, my gosh, we really were right. They really are doing it. They really are establishing planetary government. They really are opening the borders and saying our kids belong to the state and teaching 2 + 2 = 5 and saying we didn't build our businesses and geoengineering. I mean, Bill Gates is a supervillain beyond anything in a James Bond movie. He's involved in weather manipulation with hurricanes. That's mainstream news. He's got a fleet of aircraft messing with hurricanes. He's involved in chemtrailing. But what he's doing is classified. Warren Buffett, involved in every evil you can imagine. George Soros, involved in every evil you can imagine. The Rockefellers, involved in everything you can imagine. The Saudi royal family, the British royal family, the Rothschilds. It's crazy. We're living in a science fiction dystopia that they're billing as a utopia. And they have model cities where they allow some industry and some freedom, but only because people accept globalism. And then everyone looks to that. Austin's one of these cities. To then adopt all this so they'll be prosperous, but really it's like a bear trap. Steve Quayle's our guest. I want to go to Jerry and have him finish up, and then I want to get to all these callers that have been holding. Steve Quayle is our guest, but this is an epic time to be alive. Jerry, finish up your point.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say, if you watch what they put on TV, they're telling us what they've got coming. And in 2 weeks, they have a person of interest coming out where a computer virus crashes the stock market. How did they dovetail that, filming months and months ago, with what's going on today with the Sony hack and the stock market hitting record highs?
Oh, absolutely.
They already know what was going to happen.
Most people get their news from the from entertainment, so that's where they put the programming. That's on record. Great point. Steve Quayle, that brings up what I raised earlier. AP reports U.S. economy accelerates and helps lift Dow to 18,000 points. Derivatives and fiat dollars are what are inflating the stock market as the real economy dies. What's your view on the economy next year?
Well, first of all, I think we're going to have a bank crash. I think the Sony hack, if people look at what's happened to the Sony hack, for the first time corporate veil has been broken, and they're going to go after, and whoever is responsible is brilliant because they're going after the people that make up the corporation. A corporation is an artificial construct that basically protects everybody from liability. I think you're going to see, Alex, the takedown of some of the major global corporations this way. And what's happening now, listen, the targeting is changing. Some of these guys are going to be whacked, just like the Grill Economist V stated, back before I think there were 12 bankers and international financiers killed, murdered, assassinated, suicided. Now we're up to close to 40. But what I think people have got to recognize is that this Sony attack and hack, and we're being told that our financial institutions are in great danger. We're being told that, yet people will keep their money in banks and non-interest-bearing CDs. And again, look at this. Alex, I have talked to very wealthy people. In Montana, we have a place called the Yellowstone Club. The world's billionaires, half of them that you just, or almost all of them that you just named, live up there or have one of their many houses around the world up there. So they don't live if Yellowstone is going to blow within 30 miles of Yellowstone. I'm just telling you that. But in all of this, the point being is that the cyber attack on the bank is coming. Now that it's been effective in Sony, see what's happened? They've already made the precedent that one of the biggest corporations in the world, the entertainment corporation of the world, is no longer safe. And everybody who's related to that corporation is no longer safe. I also believe that Hollywood has sown evil, and now they're going to reap the whirlwind. I think they're going to reap it. Now, let's talk about the 18,000 Dow. For the record, 18,000 is 666. I believe the Illuminati, as at different times, they put their signals to all of their members and their buddies out there for everyone to see. That is so disjointed from the real world. They will never tell the truth. All the government's numbers are lies, all of them. That's why John Williams' Shadow Stats is such an important site. Look, you can't have 100 million people unemployed. You can't have $1 trillion in student loans. You can't have these people unemployed and then be bringing in, 18 million immigrants through the border and displacing people. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have a job, you can't buy a house. You know where all the housing prices, all the housing sales are going?
50 million people on food stamps and growing. Imagine soup lines with 50 million in them every day.
It won't happen, Alex. They'll start to poison. One of the top military guys told me, he said, the plan is, Steve, do you remember years ago, right after 9/11, this is critical, that they were really concerned with spray planes?
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
Spray planes. I don't think people understand, and now I'm not talking biological, I'm talking chemical. If you have a very closed community and the winds are right, you basically fly over, kind of like Goldfinger, James Bond, and you just take out everybody, okay? So the plan is even on the trains, some people still don't believe there are prison cars ready to set. The plan is to take them out to a spur line, and basically, it's funny, the prison cars will be in front behind the engine, and behind that are the bulldozers and the caterpillars, and they just basically spray everybody in the prison cars. You see, this is what they're saying they're going to do. This is what what insiders have told me they're going to do. And still, people go, I don't believe that. So here's the deal. For those of you that always fall back on the don't believe that, or that anytime anybody tells the truth, the shill factor gets in, and the permanent propaganda crew in the Illuminists start going on saying, well, these guys are crazy, these guys are doom porners, or whatever they say, okay?
Fear porn.
Yet, Alex, you have been right, I have been right, and there's no one who can deny it with the thousands of hours of broadcast. Well, we didn't warn people many years ago, if not decades.
Well, I know this. There are people running things, and it doesn't matter if it's the CIA, the FBI, Interpol, MI6, MI5. There are good people in all those organizations. In fact, per capita, there might be even more good people in them because they are inside and somewhat decompartmentalized compared to the public, so they know what's going on. But it doesn't matter because at the top of almost all those organizations are key globalists that are controlling it and controlling the narrative. But because there are so many good people in the system now, it's hurting the globalists because they get caught when they pull things. But here is the larger problem in that, is that the public, on average, is so dumbed down, they don't give support to the good people inside the system that would try to tell people the truth about what's happening. I mean, look at all the pedophile scandals in the British government. They do that to compromise people. Look at just all the craziness that has already come out. It makes my head spin. Lori in California, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Thank you, Alex. I have 4 points I'd like to make, and I'll be really quick. The first is I think that the globalists are going to hit us on all fronts. I don't think they're going to let up. I think there's going to be a lot of false flags to divert us, but they'll still keep going under the wire to attack us. And secondly, the northern counties in California are trying to secede from Southern California. I don't know if you're aware of that because
Yes.
they're not being represented. Fourthly, I'd like to remind people, thirdly and fourthly, Lung Cleanse helped me get over that viral gook that's going around in 4 days, where it's taking my friends 3 weeks to a month. And I'd also like to remind people, prepare for their pets also. That's crucial. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, ma'am. Since you brought that up, I didn't know you were calling on that subject. We looked at big holes in the supplement industry, because the supplement industry is always trying to come out with some new, manipulated, changed staple to call it something new. And they'll change, an acid or something in it and then give it some new cool name with something that's already a staple. We went back to basics to find the most organic, powerful, concentrated, cold-pressed products. I mean, the iodine is from deep beneath the earth, 100%. It's like 9999 iodine. No one else has that. Other stuff is seaweed-based. Revolutionary what it does, okay? X2, discounted right now on InfoWarsLife.com. Take the Lung Cleanse. Is it 14 different? I forget. Concentrated essential oils, cold-pressed with a bunch of fruit and botanical extracts. And the only problem with it is it clogs up the spray top, so you got to wash that out every 4 or 5 times you use it, because it's not like 3 or 4 ingredients and some menthol. This is like super essential oil, over the top, what it does when I have a sore throat or when I'm having bad allergies. We have that available at InfoWarsLife.com. The Oxy powder from Global Healing Center that we have discounted at InfoWarsLife.com is ozonated oxygen tablets that time release in the upper and lower intestine, large and small intestine. All I'm going to say is sensational what it does. You've heard the callers. Rob Dew, the news director, lost 12 pounds in 1 week, and he was already not a big guy. He just had 12 pounds of you-know-what in there. And that's one of the big causes of people having so many problems, the immune system boost. In the new year, folks, give yourself a favor. As part of your New Year's resolution, take the Oxy powder. It's all available at InfoWarsLife.com, and that also helps fund the whole InfoWars operation. Go to SteveQuayle.com, get his Xenogenesis book. I've read it. Over the top, the quotes, the documents about the master plan, SteveQuayle.com. Lori, thank you so much for your call. Linda in New York, you're on the air with Steve Quayle. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you for holding.
Okay, thank you. I'm calling about no one's mentioning the problems with Fukushima, the radiation spreading all over the U.S., and all the leaking reactors that we probably have in the U.S.
90% are now leaking. I know, used to hardly any. No one cares anymore. Like used to, they ran the reactors a lot better. They don't care anymore. Fukushima's still melting down. Steve Quayle, what's going on with that?
Well, first of all, I think Fukushima is one of the most important, the biggest stories ever covered up, and I think the caller is absolutely at the center of the target on this. I try and post on my website, Alex, anytime something new comes out on Fukushima from E-News, all of the radiation levels that are being measured across the United States, you can go on a website, I forget the name of it, Rat Alert or something like that, and get a daily briefing. But here's what's not being reported, as the caller is, it's so important. An EMP strike is inevitable. When the EMP strike takes place, 124 reactors are going to go critical. And it's not lost on our enemies. Somebody says, well, you're telling the bad guys what to do. No, they're telling us what they're going to do. So the point being is that Fukushima is destroying the sea life in the Pacific, plain and simple. And the denial and the control of the mainstream media, I'm sure your caller is as furious as I am. The point being is that they are absolutely lying through their false teeth, because their teeth are false because they couldn't speak the truth because their handlers won't let them. I believe that it is the critical mass, and Fukushima is absolutely the, if you will, the equivalent of snipers around with the suppressor, and it's affecting the birth rate in the United States. It's causing mutagenic reactions. It's causing spontaneous abortions. And these people, Alex, if for no other reason, if people don't understand the silence over Fukushima is because the Eagle report is underway, even as you and I broadcast.
Well, let's
today.
expand on that, and then I want to get her comment on it. I mean, I've covered that the first couple of years heavily, and it was on record that the EPA, when they were getting 15 times one isotope, 100 and something another, 1,000 times another, they would just cover up the tuna full of it, cover up the other stuff, and wouldn't even warn people, and then later admitted they just, quote, rose internally what they now say is safe. So, that's how I started getting into iodine, and then got into the purest forms of it, was to try to protect my family's thyroid from the ambient background radiation increasing. I mean, why would the elite in the 60s detonate over, I forget how many, it's in the documentary Trinity and Beyond with Shatner, I think it's 200 or more high-powered hydrogen bombs in the upper atmosphere, and shows film of the Pentagon trying to blow holes in our atmosphere and admitting it, and then trying to blow up the Van Allen radiation belt. And they said, oh, we thought this might make the Earth lose its atmosphere or set the atmosphere on fire, but we still did it. Why would they make bizarre statements like this, Steve?
Well, first of all, this is absolutely the critical point. The Van Allen belt, as most people would realize, keeps deadly cosmic radiation. I wrote books, Alex, when I first got in the survival business about ionizing radiation, nuclear war survival. I didn't write the book Nuclear War.
I know you're an expert. Stay there. Come back and tell us why they wanted to blow our atmosphere up. I mean, it's on TV. We wanted to see if we could kill everyone. Blow the atmosphere up. I think what I'm getting at here is whether it's GMO, cross-species, hybrids, chimeras, the Pentagon, I mean, on television going, we're trying to see if we can blow holes in the atmosphere. This may cause a global fire. And this has all been declassified now by the 90s. But before it was secret, it's their films. And it's top physicists going, yes, we knew it could kill everyone, but we had to do it. And it kind of goes to the Hadron Superconducting Super Collider. Well, yes, it may cause a black hole in the equations and destroy the planet. The singularity, or, the strangelet, will fall to the center of the Earth and may take a few weeks till it forms the black hole level and kills everyone. So this just goes to the madness of the people that are in control. And now they've decided we're going to merge with machines and, become gods. The few of us that are allowed to transcend to the next level, that is. And then we get back to the whole 2001 Space Odyssey. Steve Quayle, comments on that.
Well, first of all, atmospheric testing and everything that they were trying to do then I believe that they actually, Alex, even the point of CERN looking for the God particle, that's just a cover story. Back when atmospheric testing began and with all the different names attributed to it and all the different tests associated with it, I believe that they were trying literally the Illuminists, the Luciferians at that time to cause and to enable, if you will, the merging of two dimensions. I believe, and I've been contacted by people who have worked at CERN, that basically it's all designed, and whether you like the term or not,
to open interdimensional gates.
It's open the gates. Jesus said the gates of hell. Look, a gate is either designed to keep something from, keep something out or allow something in. So the point is, when I get, contacted by physicists at CERN saying, hey, you won't believe this, but guess what we saw at the end of our supposed time tunnel? So all of it, and isn't it interesting that CERN uses basically a Hindu god of destruction as their patron symbol?
They have a giant idol right in the middle of it, I know. It's beyond insanity. I want to jam in one final caller. Sorry to the others. Kevin in West Virginia, go ahead.
Hi, I was calling in because I wanted to say, wow, you guys hit on what I was going to say anyway. But I wanted to say, with 2015, 2016 and everything, I believe we are going to be crushed to the point that we are going to beg for a savior, pointing towards all roads lead to Rome, and with the Vatican and the Luciferian telescope looking for extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional life, meaning that we are going to be ushering in the alien savior. I believe that not only we are all going to be deceived, not all of us, but even the elect are going to be deceived.
Well, I'll say this. They're certainly promoting that in the culture and the media, and the Vatican has come out and said, we think aliens are probably real, and get ready for it. A lot of bizarre stuff getting pushed out there. Interesting points. We got to jump. What do you think, Steve Quayle?
Well, I think that the caller absolutely has got a total grasp on what's happening. That is the end game. The Vatican's already run record. Tom Horn has recorded interviews with the top astronomers and the top scientists in the Vatican, and they're all looking for the winged one. By the way, they're looking for the return of Lucifer to be the world's savior, and that's what I've written about in my Aliens and Fallen Angels book, The Sexual Corruption of the Human Race. My final book that's coming out is going to deal with stargates and doorways, and most people will be amazed, Alex, because people now, there was a time period when America was a godly nation, had foundational points of reference. We were a cohesive nation, and it's like all this evil was held back. And I think you and I have done a show that there seems to be time points and actual time portals where everything not only started to go to hell, but everything's showing up. There are actresses.
All right, we're out of time. Great job, Steve Quayle. It's all food for thought. The elite believe in it. You can think whatever you want. The point is, a major time of change is here. God bless you all. Nightly news tonight, 7 o'clock. We'll be back live tomorrow.